In mid-January, earlier this year, I filmed a predictions video for the 2023 Toronto real estate market. We're about halfway through the year. Let's find out if my predictions aged like fine wine or like milk. Before I give you my predictions, it goes without saying that a lot of what I'm about to say will greatly depend on whether we go into a recession and how bad it is. I'm not an economist, however, it seems like lots of actual economists and pundits are split on whether we get a soft landing or not. My predictions are predicated on there being a soft landing, mostly because if the recession is really rough, then what will happen to the Toronto real estate market is fairly obvious. Lots of pain. So let's get to it. Inventory levels will drive everything, in my opinion. I think good property inventory will remain relatively low for the first half of the year, although we'll see our typical bumps in the number of new listings as we move towards the spring. All true. Great inventory, the best houses, the best streets, best neighborhoods. Inventory has been ridiculously low all year. And while there's a chance that we see further rate increases in the first quarter of the year, we've already seen a turnaround in buyer demand towards the end of 2022. So I believe demand will remain healthy barring a major recession, particularly for the most desirable properties on the market. Buyer demand remaining healthy, absolutely. It was a slow start to the year, but once the Bank of Canada announced a hold on rates in March, the market exploded.
The end of 2022 has shown us that buyers are more particular about their home purchases and aren't afraid to let certain properties linger on the market if they're not a good fit. So what does this mean for prices? I believe they will remain relatively steady with modest increases month to month as we move through the first 6 months, with the exception of the usual seasonal swings down approaching the summer.
So with prices, I was partly right. After our slow start to the year, I thought there would be modest increases, but instead the prices shot up like a rocket from March to April to May. So I was right about the increase part, but I was wrong about how modest they would be.
Average prices almost always dip from June to August due to a combination of fewer luxury home sales and reduced buyer activity. On that note, I think buyer activity will be fairly high in the summer this year. In summer of 2022, it seemed like everyone was traveling outside of Canada. With a potential recession coming, I think people will stay closer to home during the typical travel months, which means people are around to look at houses more.
Buyer activity being high in the summer, mostly wrong. I'm seeing a lot of properties sit, things are relatively quiet, sales are down a huge amount even just from June, but there are some exceptions. I had some clients lose out in competition 5 offers on a property in less than 48 hours, but it was on arguably the best street in a really great neighborhood, which is Leaside.
We'll be closer to when people start anticipating interest rate cuts, and so buyer and seller activity will increase. The general consensus I'm seeing out there is that rates might come down in late 2023, but not likely until the start of 2024. But by September or October, people will start seeing those lower rates coming, and they'll feel better about buying a home, so we'll see a healthy bump in buyer demand. And because I predict that the first half of the year will have small price growth, but pretty decent buyer demand, sellers will have the confidence they need to put their home on the market and feel good about the price they're going to get. Mix in the anticipated lower rates and what that will do for buyer demand, and sellers will start listing their homes in much better numbers than the first half of the year and compared to the last half of 2022. By the end of the year, I think total sales will be up compared to last year.
So for the next half of the year, basically what I said is that fall will be fairly busy, both on the buyer side and on the seller side. If the summer is any indication, I'm starting to worry a little bit about those predictions, but I certainly hope that I'm wrong, because I think it would be good for the market for more sellers to come to market, and that would encourage possibly more buyers to get involved into the market as well. And with people looking ahead to next year with rates coming down, hopefully that will encourage buyers to get off the fence as well. If I may say so myself, I thought I did pretty good on those predictions. I was maybe a little bit wrong in terms of how modest the increases would be, but for the most part, I thought the first half of the year would be a pretty healthy market, and I'd like to think that that came true. Don't hesitate to send me an email at jharnish@bosleyrealestate.com if you have any questions about the Toronto market. I'll see you at the end of the year for our recap of what's to come. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure you don't miss any upcoming content.